Well, we're in the middle of.
I'll tell you in a moment. Okay, good morning. We're on page, does anyone remember, I think 31, correct?
I think so, yeah, we're on 31.
131 towards the bottom of the page. We spoke about the two different types of fire within a flintstone and fire within a coal.
Right.
So we're middle and towards the end of this idea, at least for now, where the Rebbe is talking about the difference between, and this is very important for your understanding of Hasidus, the difference between the way the midos, or we call them the koiches hanefesh, the attributes, the traits of the soul as they are in the soul, compared to the way the last trait, the last midah, the last sphere of malchus, the way malchus is in the soul. And what's the difference? The difference is that all the traits, chesed, gvurat, tiferes, etc., all of them, even when they're not revealed, when they're concealed, when they're not yet in their prime, they're ready to be revealed. And all it takes is a kind of light awakening. Just like if you touch the coal, the spark will come out. Because the spark exists in the coal, in the language of the Maamar, as a metziyut, as an existence, as an entity, as a metzius. Compared to the sphere of Malchus, what's Malchus, Moshe? What are we talking about? The feeling of, I am over you, and you are and I'm dominating over you. You only royal, regal kingship. That feeling in a person who has that as their mainstay, like a king, is not readily available unless you really plead and beg and reveal it. Just like you have to take the flintstones, and rub them against each other. Just blowing on a flintstone you're not going to get a spark. Blowing on a coal, you're going to get a spark. Because the spark is ready right there. Where in the flintstone, it's there. It's not that it's not there, because if it's not there, we cannot create ex nihilo. Only Hashem can create yesh mi'ayin. So if the spark were not to be within the flintstone, we wouldn't be able to make it come out, even if we rubbed 55 flintstones with each other. The fact that we take a flintstone when we rub it and we get a spark, it shows that it's there. But the question is, in what manner is it there? So the Rebbe says it's in a manner called helem she'eino b'mitziut. It's concealed, and it is not, and it's concealed. It's concealed. When you say it's concealed, you're saying it is there. But what's the manner of how it's there? Eino b'mitziut describes the manner of which it's there. And what is that? That it's non-existent. But what do you mean it's non-existent? We mean to say, now listen to this. When we say existence and non-existence, we mean in our world of words and ideas, we're making a comparison within our world. So in our world, in our usage of words, existence and non-existence in this scenario means it's readily available or it's not readily available, and it takes a lot of effort. But it does not mean to say that it doesn't exist at all. So you have to be very clear about that. And why is it so? Because Malchus is such a trait that's so deep within the person's soul that to reveal it takes creating the willingness on behalf of the person who is in the category of a melech to want to be a king. And this explains to us why there are people who do have leadership qualities, and yet they can go through their life and never be a leader. And you ask yourself a question, why? If I know the person, and I'm telling you he has those traits, the answer is because he didn't have the subjects to want and reveal within him a desire to want to be a king, to want to be a leader. and that takes subjects. And guess what? He cannot create the subjects. Can the king create the subjects? No. Hashem creates the subjects. The king, acting like a king and being such a person, will interest the subjects, but at the end of the day, the subjects have to acknowledge the king, the person, and say, we want you as our king. That's why we say we say Hashem Molech, 1 second Moshe, Geus Lavish, and we say this Rosh Hashanah night. We talk about Hashem's exaltedness and we connect it to Adam, and he's going to say it here later in the Maamar too. It's Rosh Hashanah when Adam Harishon acknowledges Hashem and says, I want you as my king. That is Rosh Hashanah, not the 25th of Elul when the world was created, because the world was created, as we spoke about yesterday, Hillel, ki chofetz chesed hu. Hashem on his own said, I want to do a good thing. I don't care, subjects, no subjects. This is what I want to do. And Hashem wants to do it, it's going to happen. But then from that day on, he says, now from here on, it's no more free rides. I gave you a free ride because I wanted you to come into existence. You're here now. Now I want to see you work for it. Hashem Melech Geis Lavish is through Avodim. Yes, Moshe.
Yeah, it just reminds me a little bit about what you're talking about, the Melech and subjects, the person needing to actualize the leadership. The story that you told, that you sent down to us a few weeks ago about the Baba of a Rebbe, going into the Rebbe, about crying, and the Rebbe told him, you're a king, you just have to be that king. I don't know. It reminds me. I don't know if
well, I would say the connection to the story that you're talking about is that the Rebbe was telling him, the Rebbe said to him, there is an entire kingship waiting for you on the other side of the door. But so allow yourself to be available, and being morbid and depressed and broken is not going to be inspiring for your subjects, for your Hasidim. So I understand your pain. You lost everything in the Holocaust, and it's gefährlich, but you have a job to do. Hashem gave you a job, and right now the job is these people. So now you need to change focus, and in a sense, stop crying, and look towards the light. And that's what he did. That's what he did. And he rebuilt an entire empire of the Bava Hasidim. Let's go back to the Maamar now. We're on page 31, and I'll tell you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines from the bottom, in middle of the line where it says, Ulozois hinegilui koyach ha'isnasus. Page 31 in the Maamar. Hayom Haras. The idea of revealing the trait of exaltedness, of leadership, Shehu Midas HaMalchus. This is the Midah of Malchus. Avi, if someone were to ask you, what is Malchus within yourself? Tell me what it is. You're not a king. I'm not a king. So the answer is the quality of leadership. So the issue is, how do we reveal this leadership? Totally, the answer is, it depends through the arousal of the willpower. The individual should want and desire the expansion of their essential power of leadership, of kingship and royalty, melucha, haklula benefesh, that's incorporated and included in the soul. If you don't want to be a leader, you are not going to be a leader, even if your father's a leader, your mother's a leader, and your grandparents are going back to Adam Arishim. If you don't want to be a leader, it's not going to be. And we've seen this. I'm writing now about different Hasidic sects and Lubavitch. So I'm writing about Kapishnitz and Bayan and Rizhin. Right? And they for years didn't have a Rebbe. because those that wanted, the Hasidim didn't want, and those that the Hasidim wanted, they didn't want. So it took years until the Bayana Rebbe, for example, 1984 Hanukkah, when he was 25 years old, he accepted the leadership. But there's a whole history that most people don't even know. His grandfather passed away in 1971. 71 to 84 is 13 solid years. What happened during those 13 years? And the answer is there were many attempts and a lot of pressure, some of it which was no good, which is coming out in my book in a respectful way, but it needs to be told because pressure and bullying doesn't help, and we shove it under the carpet, but it's real, and it's time for us to wake up and realize that pressuring and bullying doesn't only hurts people, doesn't help them. And this will be, I think, a very big revelation to those that read and are open-minded. They're not scared to deal with an issue. But so it took him 13 years to become a Rebbe. And so Kapishnitz passed away in 67. So his son, Rav Moshe Heschel, took over. Then he suddenly passed away in the early 40s in 1975. And from 1975 till most recently, they didn't have an official Rebbe. And in fact, the Rebbe of Borough Park doesn't call himself a Rebbe. He doesn't want to be known as a Rebbe. So here it is. People who supposedly have this malchus of the rabbinic Rebbe in their lineage, it's not being accessed, or was not accessed for years. And it takes Ratzon. And it happened with the Rebbe too. Let's talk about our Rebbe. The Rebbe from 1950, Yud Shvat, January 1950, when the previous Rebbe passed away, until the following year, Yud Shvat, when the Rebbe said the first Maamar and officially accepted the leadership, there was tremendous pressure on him, to the point where he said, if you don't stop pressuring me, I'm going to go away. My wife and I will just leave town and you won't know where we are, you won't see us, and goodbye, Charlie. So they tried this and they tried that and they tried that, and finally it worked. Because they were ma'ater, and actually they credit the Rebbe's wife, Rebbe Hayom, for getting him to agree, where she said to him that what will be with my father's holy work if no one replaces him. You know, all of his hard work and his Mesiras Nefesh that he mamish gave his blood for Yiddishkeit, not only him but his Hasidim, will be out the window. And the Rebbe alluded to all that in the first Farbrengen of Yud Shvat, the first formal Farbrengen, where he said that we will help, meaning I'll help you as much as I can, but you have to work yourself, because that's at the essence of Chabad Chasidus. Avoida b'koyach atzmai. There's no free rides here, but we will guide and advise and help. So there too, it took a year of being ma'ater the Rotzoin of the Rebbe to want to be a Rebbe over Hasidim. So you see this trend throughout history and recent history, and what we understand is exactly what it says in the Maamar here. Because Malchus is so latent within the person, it requires a powerful Hisorarut Harotzain to get that Malchus to want to be a Melech. Okay, let's continue. He cited and the arousal of this will, how do we get Yoni the Melech to want to be a Melech? It comes through Kabbalah's Malchusay, through accepting the king. We are your subjects. We're willing to do what you want. And the more that is stated, and the more that is shown, and the more that is heard by the king says, you want me? You really want me? Then I'm gonna come through. Like this morning, before Shachris, a young Chassidish boy came in, and he's looking and looking, and it was still 5:30 in the morning. So I said, you're looking for a minyan? I said, the next minyan is 5:45. But that minyan is before Netzachama. And if you're makbid at Daven Netzachama, it's the minyan that we're at right now, which won't start till 6:15 or so, because 6:28 is Netzachama. So I said to him, then I see he's looking at me, and he says, okay, and he's looking, thinking maybe, I said, you could stay here, you could learn some Hasidus before davening. Meanwhile, 3 people sitting all around me, their eyes lifted with a smile, because of course they heard a Lubavitcher speaking, talking about learning Hasidus before davening and not Gemara. But they're all nice guys, and they're all like continuing to daven while they're smiling. Oh, the Lubavitcher is starting up with this guy. Why am I saying that? And I said to him, I quoted a Gemara. So some smart guy, another friend there at the minyan says, so are you ready to give a shiur? I said, any time you want a shiur, I'm available. But I want to see if the calf wants to nurse. I'm the cow. We're the calves. If the calves want to nurse, I will give you milk. If you don't want nurse, you ain't getting any milk from me. You know, it's so easy, and conversation ended. No one wanted a shiur, and life just continues. You understand? So this is what we're talking about here. His Seirus Haras and Avi requires subject matters to have Kabbalah soil. If the subject matters don't have real Kabbalah soil, the king says, I have better things to do with my time. Bug off. Go bother someone else. Okay? And this is so true in every aspect of life. You want your wife to respond? Show her that you care. You want your employer to respond? Show him that you care. You want your teenager to respond? Show him that you care. Genuinely, not fake news. Real. Let's continue. Says the Rebbe, this is the whole idea of Achtorah. Rabbi Yasha Ber Soloveitchik would talk about what his Melamed in Chaslavich taught him about Rosh Hashanah when he was a little boy in Chaslavich, and his Melamed was a Lubavitcher Chassid, Baruch Rizman. He remembered the name even, and he would say, he taught us that Rosh Hashanah is not about banging your chest and not about crying. Rosh Hashanah is about crowning Hashem as the king, and he said it in Yiddish. But his real Russian aristocratic Yiddish, Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke aristocratic Yiddish, a Litvish, Lubavitch aristocratic Yiddish. The Koronatia, which in English, of course, is coronation. The Koronatia. Hachtorah in Hebrew. Hachtorah in Hebrew, Koronatia in Yiddish, coronation in English. This is the idea of the Hachtorah, the coronation, the Koronatia. Where we crown the king with the crown. Keser Malchus. You know the crown of a Torah? We don't pay much attention to it, but you should know. The crown of the Torah, it's not the Torah, it's the crown. But the crown represents something in a way that's deeper than the Torah. It makes the Torah. Because without the crown of the Torah, you're showing you don't really give significance to the Torah. When you put the crown on the Torah, it becomes a real Torah. I'm not talking halachically, we're talking about an idea and concept. So the king is that way too, Moshe. For the king to be a king, where is the crown? Imagine the king is wearing a sailor's hat. We're not boating now and fishing. Where is your crown? There is something to regal clothing. And just for a moment, I want to talk about that for a second. This idea, on one hand, you know, the whole idea of dressing up and clothing is like indulgences. If not indulgences, it's show off. If not show off, it's like what for? And frankly, in Chabad, there is that attitude. And that's why Chabad Hasidim, let's say that Mendel Futterfass, you've seen pictures of him. What is he wearing? Even on Shabbos? A sailor's hat. Because that's what they wore in Russia. And the Rebbe told, I don't know if he told him, but he told those Hasidim, there was Vyshetsky, Rabbi Vyshetsky, Rabbi Berkechain, and Rabbi Mendel Futterfass were 3 Hasidim from Russia who survived, came to Eretz Yisrael and visited Crown Heights, and they were by Farbrengens and by davening with their they're called kasketlach, like the sailor hat. And they wanted to change some of them because everyone else is wearing a hat up or a hat down. And the Rebbe said, don't change. Don't change. Because that hat, that kasketel, that sailor's hat represents you in Russia fighting for Yiddishkeit. And we need to preserve that, because that's what Yiddishkeit's about. That's what Torah is about. Don't change. So, did the Rebbe give credence and significance to that? Absolutely. You understand? So how do we say that Chabad doesn't care about clothing and all that? What we mean is we're not into, Rosh Hashanah comes, you hear in Borough Park, I don't know, it's in Bet Shemesh, but Yoni probably knows from Flatbush also, but especially in Borough Park, the Hungarians are, everyone has to have, the 5 girls of a family, they have to have the exact same dress, and the exact same shoes, and everything has to be matching, and they don't buy it at a cheap store, at a bargain store in the Lower East Side. They buy it retail on 13th Avenue, pay the highest prices. And they enjoy doing that. And they mean it for the mitzvah, really. But at the same time, it's like, it's over the top. It's over the top. They don't think it's over the top. Others think it's over the top. So there is that issue. Then there's the issue that there is a symbol of clothing which is demonstrative of self-sacrifice for Yiddishkeit and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is valuable. That is valuable. Because that means, right? Why we were liberated from Mitzrayim, Avi? Because of 3 things. One is, Lo Ishinu es levushim. They didn't change their clothing. Yes, Moshe.
Wait, Dov, I'm sorry, just a quick question. You're talking about, I know that within Chabad there is an inyan, though, let's say to wear silk on Shabbos. Could you just speak about that for just a brief moment?
Yes, that is when you say Chabad, it's an inyan in Kabbalah. It's brought down in Kabbalah. And Chabad is makpid on that. Why? Go back probably to the Alter Rebbe, that Tzemach Tzedek. I don't know, but it's not, it wasn't originated in Chabad. It's an inyan brought in Kabbalah that the Rabbeim and supported and wanted. So that is correct. But that fits into what I'm saying, Moshe. That's because of the holiness. It's not that we're looking to wear silk because we want to show off our fancy kapota. Could you imagine, And let's take another example. You see how many people wear an atara around their talus, right? They have an atara. You know what an atara is? A silver, some silver, I don't know what you would call it. An atara, silver atara.
So, they call it a Torah, a crown.
Okay,
Crown,
a crown, whatever. So the story is that the Lubavitch Chassidim also wore that atara, but when the Alter Rebbe was imprisoned, they sold their atara for ransom money for the Alter Rebbe, and since then they never put it back on. Did you ever hear that? Yes, Hillel.
While we're on the subject of Talisa, I want to ask you something. The 2 holes in the talus. That, first of all, one, is that just on the talus katan? Is it also on the talus gadol? And 2, what is it about?
Okay, so
the corners of the talus.
Yeah, so I can answer partially. I can answer the question. The 2 holes are both in the talus katan and the talus gadol. That's number 1. Number 2, in Chabad, the 2 holes in a talus katan are straight, and in a talus gadol they're on a slant. And I'm not. I check those that are not wearing Lubavitcher Talesim, see if it's that way on the non-Lubavitcher Talesim. I don't recall now.
So I've never seen non-Lubavitch Talesim that have 2 holes, even though I do see it on Talus Katan.
Okay. So Moshe, is that the case? Moshe, is that the case? Non-Lubavitch Talesim don't have 2 holes?
No, some do, some don't. It depends. It depends.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, Hillel. I don't have the Sfarim in front of me to tell you if this is an inyan of Kabbalah, 2 holes versus 1. I don't. To me, from what I know, what What do you
Can
say?
you also just say what is the distinction of a Chabad talis?
That's the distinction. A, Chabad talis does not have an Torah. Many of the others have an Torah. B, there's two holes versus one hole. Number 3, the 2 holes in a Chabad talis are on a slant, not straight. Third of it. And number four, I think when you make the tzitzis, there's a different way of making the tzitzis coming out of the 2 holes in the way you make a Chabad talis versus not a Chabad. And number 5, and this is true for tzitzis and a talis, the difference is what we call the chulios. You know what chulios mean? The loops.
No.
Hold on.
The what?
I don't know if you could see on the screen, but these loops that form the 7, 8, 11, and 13, in a Chabad way there's a little loop on either horizontal.
Back away from the screen. I can't make it.
Yeah.
Do you see, in addition to the regular loops, do you see this line of loops?
Okay. It looks like they're longer, they're more stretched out.
So it's not just much stretched out. It's the way it's made. In other words, the regular way making tzitzis is just loops. That's it. In the Chabad way, we use the shamish to create a loop within a loop. So it's a different way of making it.
Okay.
That and there's a difference. There's not a question. There is a real difference between the two. Both are kosher, both are, of course, but there's 2 different ways. So I've told you 5 differences between the Chabad talis and the regular talis. But I want to go back to the point of the Torah, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you can. So we did wear an Torah, but when the Alter Rebbe,